outside? Should I run and hide? How do I take my company worldwide? Do you love the law? Did you watch Hee-Haw? What's the weirdest thing that you ever saw? What's it like in court? Favorite sport? Can you help with my book report? Is my hair too long? Am I right or wrong? And do you mind if I sing along to anything? Ask Alan anything in the world.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to this episode of Ask Alan, the podcast. I'm Alan Crone, the CEO of the Crone Law Firm. We've got a very special guest today, Ms. Janet Falk, who is president of Janet Falk Public Relations. She's going to talk to us a little bit today about the press and how to continue branding yourself through the various media. Janet, thank you for joining the podcast.
I'm so excited to be here, Alan. Thank you.
Well, as I say, tell me a little bit about about you, how you got into this business.
Well, Alan, you may have looked at my website, so you saw that my logo is a little unusual. It's the letter F inside the shape of an octagon. And that's because I'm not a round peg. I'm not a square peg. I'm an octagonal peg. My background includes higher education, Wall Street, nonprofit, and the law. So you can see I've worked in quite a few different settings with a variety of clients who are targeting different audiences. And that has made me sharper about helping my clients to reach out and determine who it is that they want to speak to, what it is that is concerning their potential client or referral source, and what it is that they want them to do next. How can they take that next step so that they will understand that my client understands their problem and my client represents a solution to that problem.
You work exclusively with lawyers or other professionals as well?
I work with accountants, I work with business owners, I work with consultants. So it's a variety of clients, and that's what keeps it interesting for me, because I'm always getting a window into a new industry and a new audience and figuring out what makes my client tick and what concerns their audience. So I like having a diversified practice.
That's great. If someone is just thinking, well, I really need to raise my profile, how do you advise them to start going about that?
So I have a process which I call a communications audit. So we look at what are your assets in terms of your website, in terms of your contact with your clients. Do you regularly communicate with them through a newsletter or through sending them reports? Have you been quoted in the media? And what is your LinkedIn presence? What is your social media presence? So let's do a survey of all of your assets and make sure that they are contemporary. You don't want to have a website that looks too out of date, and that they are all working on your behalf. And sometimes we have to do a digital search to see what might be out there that you're not paying attention to, that, maybe an old reference. Is that something that you can address? I don't do reputation management. There are other people I know who do that work. But the main thing is to see what are your digital assets, what is your presence, how are you perceived in the marketplace, and is that accurate for the people that you want to be working with?
Any tactic that you find professionals just leave on the table that would be very helpful if they would just do one simple thing?
The one simple thing that everyone can do is to clean up the headline on their LinkedIn profile. Where whoever you meet and wherever you go, they're going to look for you on your LinkedIn profile. And if your headline says attorney or lawyer or founder, I have to tell you, Alan, that is not helping you at all, because no one is looking online for an attorney. They're looking for someone who is a matrimonial lawyer who is experienced in custody disputes, or they're looking for a lawyer who can help them deal with their business partner because they want to buy them out. Now, if you were to do a little research like I did just before this call, say you were in the state of Wyoming, which is the least populated state, and you looked on LinkedIn for an attorney, there are 722 attorneys with attorney in their headline on LinkedIn, and there are 185 partners. So that's not helping you. You have to change your LinkedIn headline so that it's going to include certain words that are going to respond to the need of the person who's trying to get in touch with you. So if there's one thing that you can do, it is to clean up your headline on LinkedIn, because whatever you do on LinkedIn, your headline travels with you. And so you want that to clearly display the service that you provide and the person that you are targeting.
Speaking of LinkedIn, do you recommend a different approach to LinkedIn if you're in an established situation looking for business as opposed to looking for a job?
Well, I think that you're always in the business of you, right? You're in the business of Alan Crone. I'm in the business of Janet Falk. And so you have to be portraying your best self so that other people will want to get to know you better and understand that you represent a solution to their problem. So I really don't see a difference in that way. You're simply talking about who it is that is your target audience. So maybe you want to be more narrow and define, so say you are an attorney and you are, a trust and estates attorney focused on a certain kind of client in a small firm or in a solo practice or in a medium-sized firm. So maybe you could add that if that would be helpful to you in your job search. But in fact, LinkedIn has a way that you can signal that you are open to opportunities. So you could do it that way as well.
All right, so I'm sharing my screen with you. All right, so this is my LinkedIn page, or at least I guess my LinkedIn, it's not my profile, but already my LinkedIn profile stinks, doesn't it? Because I did exactly what you told me not to do. Founder and chief executive of the Crone Law Firm. I should change that, right?
Yes, you should. Now, Alan, why don't you describe a little word or two about your practice so that I have an idea of what you focus on? Because I did look it up before, but I don't have it top of mind.
I understand. Well, our elevator speech is, at the Crone Law Firm, we represent employees, executives, and entrepreneurs in legal disputes that affect their ability to make money.
Well, that really sums it up, because everything affects your ability to make money.
Well, that's kind of the point.
Right.
But, not really.
Are you talking about, contracts? Are you talking about real estate? Are you talking about employees and unions? It's hard for me to get a more specific handle. So can you give me an example of a recent client success, and then I'll see if I can sprinkle a little magic pixie dust on it.
Well, the firm does a lot of different things. For employees, for example, we will do wage and hour or overtime disputes. We'll do wrongful terminations based on discrimination or retaliation. For executives, we do some of that, but we also do contract negotiations, non-compete defense and enforcement. And then for entrepreneurs, we help them with their business. We help them with HR compliance, with business contracts, formation, business divorces, that sort of thing.
Right. So you're doing both employee advocacy and protection, and also employer protection.
Right. Generally, if we're working for employers, it's a smaller, it's an entrepreneur as opposed to a big company.
Right. Okay. So let's just focus on the employee aspect. Okay. And you can say advocate for employees who experience sexual harassment or, racial discrimination or disability discrimination, period. Right? And then you could say, advise employers on best employee practices, semicolon, write manuals, period. Because I imagine you help write HR manuals, right?
Yes.
Okay. So did we solve your problem? Because we included employees, we included employers, we included sexual harassment, discrimination, and advise employers on best practices and HR manual.
Well, yes, and I'm going to work on that today. I'm going to make that change.
Well, I'm so glad to hear that. Let me point out that you have 220 characters to do that in your LinkedIn profile, so you want to use it. And here's another tip. Why don't you look at what some of your competitors do? Look at what some of your competitors do, and then see what they do, and take a leaf from their book and see if there's a way that you can incorporate some of that. But I want you to keep in mind that the person who is looking for you is not looking for a lawyer, is not looking for a founder. They're looking for someone who can deal with their discrimination or harassment or employee manual kind of problem. So those are the words that you want to be including. So you will be found using those terms.
Right, very good. What other aspects of a professional's online presence do you see coming up immediately when you're talking with most people?
But most people focus on the we when they talk about themselves and their website or in their LinkedIn profile. And I have to tell you, Alan, I listen to the world's greatest radio station, and you do too. It's called WIIFM. Have you heard of it?
No.
What's in it for me?
Right.
Now, I don't care about the we of whatever it is that you do. I care about me. So the best way to deal with this is to rewrite your website content and your LinkedIn profile so it focuses on you, the reader, the person with the problem. Because when you say things about yourself, they don't care. They care about how you're going to help them to solve their problem. But you can reference that by doing it in a little indirect way. You can say, clients count on us. Clients ask for our advice on. So then you're giving the same information, but you're not saying it about yourself. Clients are saying it about you, right? And so then the person can identify with the fact that clients look to you as a resource to solve this difficult situation. So don't talk about we, talk about you. Talk to the person that you want to engage their attention so that they will engage your services. And I see too many people who think about we and not you, and they are not listening to WIIFM, which is what everyone else is listening to.
Very good. I love that. I may steal that from you.
Please do.
Well, all right. So you've done your audit, and you've identified some of these, I won't say easy fixes, but obvious fixes. Let's say someone wants, one of your clients wants to become world famous in their hometown, and they want to do that through traditional media reporting and so forth. How do they go about that?
Okay. The best tool that I use is called a media profile. And I'll send you a copy so that you can include it in the show notes.
Okay.
And a media profile doesn't say, I'm so great, here's all my degrees, here's all my satisfied clients. No, a media profile is designed to introduce you as a professional and as a resource to the reporter. The reporter is going to have questions about what are the trends, what are the issues, what do people need to know? So a media profile will answer 3 questions for the reporter. The first question is, why you? Why should a reporter be talking to you, Alan Crone, and not somebody down the hall in your office or somebody across town who has a similar practice? So how can you show that you have your finger on the pulse of what's happening in the market or in the local area? Now, the second question is, why now? The reporter never heard of you before. Why are you getting in touch with the reporter now? Is there some change? Like, did the municipal government make some sort of recommendation or regulation, or did the federal government make some sort of recommendation or regulation? So if there's been some change, then people need to know about it now, and that's why you're contacting the reporter. So why you and nobody else? Why now? What has changed? And the third question, and this is probably the most important question, and it relates back to what I said earlier. Why should anyone care? People who are listening to WIIFM, they want to know how to save time, save money, and make more money, right? And that's what you work on. You help people to make more money, right? So you have to show that an individual or a business owner or a corporation needs you to explain something to them so that they can save time, save money, and make more money. Now, when you answer these kinds of questions in your media profile, then the reporter will have you on file as a reliable and accessible source. So I'll send you a sample media profile so that your listeners and viewers can get an idea of how to go about this. So the question now is, all right, I've come up with what I think are some interesting topics and things that people need to know. How do I physically get in touch with the reporters? I can't just, knock on the door of the newspaper or the radio station. So what I suggest you do is you build an email list. And how do you identify the reporters in the publications? Well, one thing is to look at your clients and see, where are your clients getting mentioned in the news? And if you go to their websites, you'll see that your clients have articles where they have been mentioned in the news. So if they're being mentioned in supermarket news or in chain store age, then you know that that's what they're reading, and that's where you want to be seen. But if you can't figure out where your clients are being seen, then look at where their competitors are being seen, because it works the same way, right? Mm-hmm. And there are hundreds of thousands of publications out there. And so you want to be targeting the ones that are most aligned with your clients. So now let's say, okay, you've identified the publications and you're going to identify the reporters. So look at the publications. You can find most of them online and see which reporters are writing about the issues that concern your clients and that align with your business or with your law practice. And when you have identified the reporters, you have to find their email address. So this is the way to do that. First, many publications list the reporter's email address at the bottom of the online article so that you can get in touch with them. And it's often a very simple formula of, first name dot last name at WSJ for Wall Street Journal, or first initial last name at dailynewspaper.com, and so on. Now, if you can't find it there and it's a magazine, you can go to what's called the masthead of the magazine. Now, the masthead lists all the reporters and the editors and whatever subject matter they cover and their email address, and sometimes even their phone number, so that you can get the email address of the reporter that you're interested in and confirm the articles that they're likely to write by looking at the masthead. So to recap, you can look at the bottom of the article online. You can look at the masthead. Now, you can also find reporters on Twitter. Do you use Twitter, Alan?
A little.
Right.
I'm not a big Twitter guy.
Okay. So many reporters are looking for ideas for stories. And so they put their email address in their Twitter bio, right? And that's because they don't want you to post on Twitter, here's an idea for a story where all their competitors are going to see it. They want you to contact them directly. So they make it easy, right? They put their email address right in their bio. So that's a third way to find a reporter's email address. Now, the fourth way is many reporters have their own dedicated website. So they aggregate all their articles and they put it on a website. So you can look for that. And oftentimes their email address will be there. Maybe it's their private email, maybe it's their business email, or maybe they have a contact me form. So you can fill that out right there. So you have the bottom of the article email address, the masthead email address, the Twitter bio has the email address, or their private website has an email address. And then there, if you can't find them, you can look for them on LinkedIn, although they don't really like that. Or you can ask your friendly public relations professional like myself. I subscribe to a database that has hundreds of thousands of reporters' names, publications, their subject areas, and their email addresses. So if you need just one or two, be in touch with me.
Well, very good. One thing, someone said this to me a long time ago, and I think it's absolutely true when it comes to reporters or really anybody. If you make it easy for them to do business with you, you're going to be a preferred customer. In other words, if you are easy to get a hold of, and if you do a lot of the work for the reporter, they'll run with your stuff, because as long as you have credibility, it's easier for them, and they're going to take the path of least resistance, just like a lawyer would do.
Right, right. I agree with that. I often use the birthday gift analogy, right? Which is, I have an idea for a story, and I have a source for the story, that's my client. And maybe I have a third party who can give some other input or some sort of testimonial. So I put that together for the reporter, and it's a birthday gift. It all comes wrapped up in a box with a little bow on top. And as you say, it makes it very easy for the reporter, because they have their story idea, they have their source, they have their secondary source. They hardly have to do any work at all. But here's another step that you can take that will even more ingratiate you with the reporter. And that is, when you see what they're writing and you have something to say about it, share the link to the story. Drive more attention to the story. So whether you're in the story or not, the more you can support them and get their article more widely read, then the closer you will be to cementing that good relationship.
In another life, Janet, I was a political consultant. And now this is back in the day, this is in the 90s. Mm-hmm. And one trick that I found, and I'm wondering if there's a 2022 variation on this, was I was managing a congressional campaign in West Tennessee, went from West Tennessee all the way over to Nashville. And we wanted to get coverage in the local newspapers, you know, the small town paper. And I found a lot of times if you just sent a photograph with a caption, then they would just run the picture with the caption because they don't have a lot of pictures. Is there a 2022 corollary to that with either print or electronic media?
Yes, I would say, first of all, it's difficult for attachments to go through the email system sometimes. Mm-hmm. So you might want to send the photo as a link to wherever the photo resides online. So you can have photos in a folder, like a Dropbox folder, and then you just send the link to the photo, and that will more easily pass through the filters of the publication. But in addition, you might have an audio clip, or you might have a video clip, right? So that will not appear in the print version of a newspaper or a magazine, but it might appear in the online version. So send a link to the photo, not just the hard photo, and perhaps you can buttress that with a link to an audio clip or a video clip, which will make it more engaging.
How is the landscape of public relations, or has it changed over the last 5 or 6 years, COVID notwithstanding? Is it harder or easier to break into this sort of thing if you're someone trying to get noticed?
It's much harder, because I was having a conversation just a little while ago with someone who used to work for a large newspaper in New York. And newspapers are shrinking, and there's less ad revenue, and readers aren't necessarily subscribing to the print edition, they're subscribing to the online edition. And there's much more competition online with other publications that are strictly online. And there's 10 public relations professionals for every journalist. Not to mention the people who are doing it for themselves because they don't have the financial resources to work with a professional. So think about that. The pie of available space is shrinking, and more people are clamoring to get a piece of the pie.
So what's the strategy for someone trying to break into it?
I think you have to be very niche focused. You have to say, I'm going to focus on this kind of topic and this kind of publication in this geographic area, and that will help you to be more successful. You can't do the old spray and pray, which is the way that people used to operate, which is just send a news release or an announcement to everyone in God's creation. No, you have to be more focused and more narrow. And as I said, keep in mind the WIIFM. What is it that you want people to know? Because it's going to solve their problem. In fact, you could even take the 5 W's that reporters use as your guideline. Think of the who, what, when, where, why. So who do you want to reach? What is it that they're concerned about? And what is it that you want them to do? Do you want them to show up at a physical location because there's an event or a sale? Do you want them to click on a link? Do you want them to go to your website? Do you want them to send an email? Do you want them to make a phone call? Do you want them to download something? Right. So who are you trying to reach? What is it that they're concerned about? What is it that you want them to do? When? Is this time sensitive? Is there something happening that they have to be alert to because it's, some deadline from the industry or the government? Or is it something that's perennial? It's not linked to any particular calendar holiday. People always have to be thinking about, protecting their home from fire or something like that. Now, where is it that people are most likely to be looking for information? Are they looking in industry publications? Are they looking in the Metropolitan Business Journal? Are they looking online? And why? That's the main question. As I said, why should anyone care? How will your insight help them to save time, save money, or make more money? Because if they only knew what you know, then they would be able to take care of their situation. So in thinking about your situation, you want to be thinking about who's on the other side and use those 5 W's as a way of framing what it is that you're offering to the media landscape so that they will think, aha, yes, we need to talk about this because people need to know how this works. And if you like, I can give you an example.
Sure.
Okay, so I mentioned a media profile, and at one point I was working with an attorney who had a practice in bankruptcy, and her particular focus was the airline industry. Now, she was located in Chicago, and so I contacted reporters who covered the airline industry to say, here's an attorney focused on bankruptcy, looking at the airline industry, and these are the alarming trends that she sees. It so happens that at the time, a reporter from Thomson Reuters covering the airline industry was based in Chicago. And so I arranged for them to get together, and they had a coffee chat for 45 minutes. And then a couple of weeks later, I see an article, Prospects of Bankruptcy in the Airline Industry, right? Now, remember what I said about the birthday gift, right? Here was an idea, and here was a source. And how did the reporter come up with that idea, right? So it was a very interesting article. My client was quoted 5 times. And because a lot of people care about the industry, it was picked up in newspapers all around the world. So you may work for an airline, you may travel for business, you may operate a resort that people get there by flying there. Maybe you sell to the airline industry because you produce some product for them. Maybe you invest in airline stocks. A lot of people care about the airline industry. It's one of the backbones of our economy. And so the prospect of bankruptcy was something that people needed to know more about. So you can see why you, because this was an attorney with this kind of experience, bankruptcy in the airline industry. Why now? Well, it wasn't particularly sensitive to the time, but the idea is that this is something that people should be aware of. It's an alarming trend. And why should they care? Well, I just explained. Airlines are a major industry in our economy. So having that in mind, the 5 Ws, using the media profile, targeting exactly who it is that's interested, right? Airline industry reporters, I was able to make this happen for this attorney.
All right, we'll play agree or disagree with me.
Okay.
You agree or disagree, and why, with this statement? There's no such thing as bad publicity.
No, there is such a thing as bad publicity. The reason is because it's going to make you look bad and people won't want to do business with you. I can give you a story about that too, if you're interested.
Sure.
So my client was an employment attorney, and he represented a woman who was alleging sexual harassment in the broadcasting industry. And this was with a name player here in New York. So first we had permission from the client that we were going to issue a press release when he filed the litigation in court. You cannot do things unless they're going to be to the benefit of your client, and your client has to give permission. So in advance of filing the case, I contacted reporters at major publications that focused on the broadcasting industry. And I said, my client is going to file a case very soon, and it's with a name player in your industry. My name is Janet Falk. Be on the lookout for a press release from me. And that was on Friday afternoon. On Monday in the morning, he filed the case. And then we had a link to a stamped copy of the complaint, because reporters outside the legal system don't always know how to navigate that docket system. And we distributed the press release. And then I called the reporters back and I said, do you remember I mentioned this case? Well, now I can tell you that the defendants are the actors on a show, and the production company, and the show, and the cable network, and the parent company. Maybe you've heard of them, Alan. Viacom. Yes, yeah. You're not, right. So, so what happened was at 1 o'clock, one of the online publications published a news story that said, allegations of sexual harassment at Viacom, right? And TMZ, which you know is a gossip website, was also reporting on the case. And they were citing all the allegations, and people were commenting on that. And, you know, that was pretty bad publicity, you have to admit. At 5 o'clock, the employment attorney, who's my client, calls me and he says, Janet, I just got off the phone with defense counsel, and we're proceeding to settlement talks, right? Now, Alan, you've done a fair amount of litigation. How would you like to file a case in the morning, and before you leave the office in the afternoon, someone wants to talk about a settlement? Pretty good deal.
Good work if you can get it.
Right, right. And what do you think happened between 1 o'clock when the news story appeared and 5 o'clock when my client called me? This is speculation on my part, but I think that advertisers who were sponsoring ads on the network were very concerned about these allegations, and they got in touch with the network and with Viacom, and they said, what's going on here? We're reviewing our budget allocation for advertising on your network. And I think enough of those calls took place that the Associate General Counsel was told, make this go away. So there you see, that was bad publicity for Viacom and for the defendants and for the, you know, the production company and so on and so forth. And in my case, it worked like a charm, right? Because I was able to issue the press release. that created a news story that sparked those phone calls saying, we're not going to advertise. And then the call came to start settlement talks. So there is such a thing as bad publicity.
Very good. Well, it's just interesting. You can get the different people have different takes, and I always like to ask that when I'm talking to somebody in your profession. Well, very good, Janet. I appreciate it. I think we've run out of time, but I want to thank Janet for being on the show. And we barely touched the surface. Maybe we can do this again sometime. And if you've enjoyed this show, and of course you did, particularly want to thank Janet for being so generous with her time, but also her advice. If you're someone who's thinking about raising your public profile, she just gave you thousands of dollars worth of advice if you'll just take it. I think, Janet, I think you probably will agree with me that some of the best things you can do in this area are very simple if they're properly focused.
That's exactly right. You can do them yourself, or you can trust a professional who's going to do them for you. No one is their own plumber.
That's right. That's right. Well, Jan is going to go help people raise their profile, and I'm going to go get some justice. So thank you all very much, and I'll see you next time.